Hello and welcome to hashtag Ask Ben. Should this be simply part 3 or 2020? A few weeks ago I asked you to give me your questions using hashtag Ask Ben in your comment, and as usual, you didn't disappoint. As of making this video, there were 23 questions asked, so I have a lot of work to do. Since there are so many, and the fact I don't want to make this a 30-minute long video, I'll be breaking it down into 2 parts. I tried my best to find every single one, but if by chance I missed yours, I apologize and I promise to get to it at a later date. So, I won't drag this out any longer since we have a lot of questions to get to. The first question comes from Gurk McGurk. Have you ever gone exploring or looked into Nunica Graveyard in Michigan? There isn't much I can find on it online, but I can absolutely tell you that the place is unbelievably a hot spot because I went there a lot growing up. Thank you for the question, Gurk McGurk. Honestly, I wasn't aware of this location before, so I had to do a little digging. I have to say that you're absolutely correct, that this place seems to be quite a hot spot, and while looking into the history, it isn't shocking that it is home to spirit activity. Apparently the site is very old, and some of the tombstones are either made of wood or are handmade. However, within this, there are many burial plots for children who died from the flu in the 1920s. Soldiers from the Civil War are buried there, and there are also rumors that the graveyard may encompass a Native American burial ground. All of those things normally are the breeding ground for paranormal activity. I saw that many people have heard disembodied voices, and 2 of the most prominent spirits are that of a young girl named Emily, and of course a spirit that every graveyard has, a lady in white. Another famous ghost is of Civil War soldier Joel Bond, who apparently has an attraction to female guests. I saw you mention about a demonic presence, and while I couldn't find ties to that, many people who visit the graveyard feel a sense of foreboding and that they aren't welcome. I will be adding this location to my video suggestions list since I think it needs to have its mysteries uncovered. Rick Does Shotokan Karate asks, have you ever thought about doing conspiracy videos and go in depth on the ones you believe in and the ones you don't? Thank you, Rick. The answer to this one is a bit complicated. I actually made videos about conspiracies when I first started this channel. I love the topic and find the many different theories out there fascinating. The JFK one really threw me through a loop since I originally assumed it was simply a hit. After looking into it, man was I wrong. Anyway, I love conspiracies, but sadly, YouTube does not. It isn't that well known that a few years ago, YouTube secretly shadow banned that topic. It isn't bad enough that they would demonetize videos about it, but they also would essentially hide those topics. So, I could make the video, but unless you regularly visit my channel, you might not know about it, since they wouldn't alert you to the new upload. However, with your request, I could try to make a video like that, but I'd have to get creative with the title. Next up is Ghostface Girl 180. Do you still live in the haunted house you talked about before? If so, what is the most recent paranormal activity you've experienced? Thank you, Ghostface Girl 180. I think a bit of confusion has happened here. There were actually 3 places that I lived in that had activity. Our apartment, the house we moved into after that, and my current residence. The apartment was definitely haunted, but I'm not sure I would use that term for either house. Yes, there was activity, but I feel saying something is haunted means spirits are active quite frequently. Our current house has activity, but something might not occur every month. Obviously, around October, when energies are high, we have a lot of strange things happening. After that, we may go months without anything noteworthy going on. Normally minor things happen frequently, but nothing earth-shattering. I used to see the young girl in a white nightgown out of the corner of my eye watching me as I worked on my computer late at night. This was a nightly occurrence, but that all changed when I moved my computer from downstairs into our office upstairs. In thinking about your question, it is hard for me since we got to the point that we hardly react to activity unless it is something big. Outside of hearing whispers and the floor creaking downstairs, The only other thing that I can think of is we recently saw the doorknob to our bedroom start to turn, and we were alone in the house. This is always followed by the footsteps in the hallway outside of our door. As of late, while I'm in the living room, I've been hearing quote-unquote people walking around upstairs. Oh, I was just about to end this topic when I literally just remembered. I caught strange activity on video recently. I subscribed to a monthly mystery box, and I was planning on recording an unboxing from my second channel. Well, I had the camera set up facing my wife's desk in the office, and this is where I was opening the boxes. Something messed up, and I walked over to my computer to check out what had happened, not realizing I still had the camera running. I decided against making the video, and when I went through the footage, I noticed something odd with the door. Just so it said, Chewy, Gidget, and Bear Bear, our dogs, were downstairs blocked off by a baby gate from coming upstairs. Like I was saying, I totally forgot about this video until reading your question. Creator Nat asks, hear me out, Ben. I would really like to see a video specifically about cryptid stories wherein the cryptids are peeping toms. I know they must be out there. Really unique topic, Creator Nat. Much like some humans, there are quite a few stories about cryptids who seem to enjoy looking into people's windows. This has encompassed many Bigfoot sightings, dogmen, and a few unique ones. I know that the biggest participant in this activity is commonly extraterrestrials. Now, I must say that I understand what you're asking, but I would say none of them fit the definition of a peeping Tom. They aren't looking in hoping to catch a person undressing or involved in other activity. They are simply curious. Outside of aliens, since they pretty much seem to be perverts. As for a video, I don't know if I could make one specifically on that topic, since that activity is normally a very small part of the whole sighting. Lena DeBono asks, I was wowed by your Halloween ship. Can you talk about how you managed to be so productive, producing over 50 videos a year? Thank you, Lena. I really enjoyed the pirate ship as well, and I've been missing having it up since that theme doesn't fit with Christmas. I actually didn't realize that I make over 50 videos a year. The answer to your question is pretty straightforward though. The pandemic. With all the craziness going on in the world, it pretty much shut down my line of work as well. So, I have a lot of free time on my hands. We both have always taken pride in our decorations for holidays, and since we really enjoy Halloween, we just decided it was time we went all out with our display. So we started building stuff about 2.5 months ahead of time. As a side note, I never did build a Santa sleigh that the neighbors wanted, but we do plan on making our next Halloween display based on aliens, including a ship and autopsy table. Carla Kirkpatrick wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Smurl Family attacks? I appreciate the question, Carla. The story you're talking about is a fairly complicated case. For those who don't know, the Smurl family lived in West Pittston, PA, and claimed that a demonic entity was causing them problems, such as grabbing family members by the head, throwing their German Shepherd across the room, levitating furniture, causing bad odors, and generally abusing the household. Many exorcisms were performed unsuccessfully, and even Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated the location in which they claimed 4 entities were living there. There are some problems with the events that took place, such as the family claiming they didn't want the attention, but in the same breath write books and take part in movies about the story. Not to mention various priests actually stayed in the house alone overnight and never had anything happen. In fact, the person who moved in after the Smurls left stated that nothing odd was happening to them. I could excuse some of this with the idea that the entity was somehow linked to the family and was out to only get them, but the activity ended the moment they moved out. You would think it would have followed them, but apparently it didn't. On the reverse, the Smurl's daughter Karen grew up and became a part-time paranormal investigator, so something spurred that interest. Had it all been a hoax, then I wouldn't see her carrying on to investigate activity. Personally, I have an unpopular opinion with the paranormal community of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Let's just leave that there. However, I feel this case wasn't a hoax, but I strongly feel that it wasn't paranormal either. I think the family believed something was going on, but it could have been a number of things. This case might make for a good video topic. Luke Klein wants to know, will we ever get your thoughts on the Hook Island sea monster, lake octopus, and will you ever do more ghost ship videos? Thank you, Luke. No, I'm just kidding. I plan on making a video about the Hook Island sea monster in the future. I want to do it in a way that looks at both sides of the argument, since many simply claim it was a hoax. To be honest, I admit the evidence does look bad, but I think that there is more to the story. I am assuming that you are asking about the Oklahoma lake octopus. Being that Oklahoma and Tennessee are still tied for being the next Cryptid by State video, you'll be hearing about that either in a couple weeks or by February. I would love to make more ghost ship videos, but that is a topic that is hard to find reports of. Outside of the usual 10 sightings, there aren't a lot more. I will look into this though, and hopefully I can find more hiding in the fog. Restion Serpentine asks, love knows no boundaries. Of all the creatures you have covered, play matchmaker, and what would the babies look like? I.e., Jersey Devil and Mothman had a fling, and now there is a little Mothwing Devil haunting the woods. Wow, now that is a request. I'm not sure, but how about Mothman and Bigfoot? I'm not aware of cryptids getting together, but maybe they do, and that is where the sheep squatch and bat squatch came from. I guess Sasquatch is irresistible to the other cryptids. Tweedle made more of a comment than question. Would you please not make a video on the other monolith in Romania? It's just out of hand, and I really hate to see you given to the bandwagoning. Thank you, Tweedle. I actually just made a post about this on my Twitter account the other day. I can't remember the exact words I used, but it basically boiled down to the fact that this monolith thing is becoming quite ridiculous anymore. So, no worries. I never had any plans to, and won't be, addressing these structures from here on out. I agree that the whole thing has become a race for people to gain their 5 minutes of fame, both in regards to the artists and those that keep making videos about each and every one. I talked about the original since it was unique, but even in that, I basically said it was more than likely man-made. This was before the other 342 monoliths started popping up. At this point, I think you can make one out of tinfoil and cardboard, and news outlets would be banging on your door. The first one was cool for what it was, but now, it's just sad. Robert Acree, the blog father, wants to know, what do you think about the underground war with the ETs and Phil Schneider? Love that question, Robert. Many of you know I have a love for Mothman and the Jersey Devil, but I also have a deep fascination with the Phil Schneider story. To put it plainly, I believe it. On face value, the whole thing seems like possibly the work of Phil's active imagination, but the more you look into it, the harder it is to discredit. The whole Dulce base story seems far-fetched until you really look into the information. One report I found was so eye-opening that I actually felt like just reading it was putting me on the government's watch list. Then you tie in how Phil died and the fact that it was obviously a murder, along with the whole thing being covered up by officials ruling it suicide, then things become clear. Regardless how credible anyone thinks Phil's story was, it certainly has evidence proving that what he was talking about was obviously making someone of power a little nervous. I love conspiracies, but I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist. However, stories like this and the government-involved destruction of Bob Lazar's life are two that I hold very deeply. Sarah Lorenz and her friend Mitch want to know, what do you think Chupacabras are? Thank you for your questions, Sarah and Mitch. This is a great topic, and honestly I'm not sure how many people know that the Chupacabra was actually the first creature to pique my interest into the cryptid world? Well, let me start off by saying that I'm very opinionated in the fact that there is only one Chupacabra, the reptilian with spikes and not the mangy dog variety. The mere fact that everyone wants to call the dog version the Chupacabra and forget about the reptile one tells me that the original sightings were correct. Now, as for your question, I have a few theories. It possibly could simply be an unknown creature, much like every other cryptid, but I do enjoy the idea of it being an escaped pet from extraterrestrials. As funny as that sounds, it was actually the original explanation. As of late, I have been coming up with a theory that it might be an interdimensional being. I have noticed cryptids with strange colored eyes all have similar characteristics and the ability to vanish without a trace. Call it cliché, but I think the interdimensional theories behind most cryptids seem to explain a lot of mysteries behind them. So with that, I'm going to end the video here, and we'll pick back up with the remainder of the questions next week. I do hope that everyone has a good week, and happy holidays. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you would share my videos with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.